Check back in with you in a few minutes. It is 7:27 right now on your Tuesday morning. Author Nelson DeMille is live in New York City right now talking about his new book, Radiant Angel. Nelson, pleasure to speak with you this morning. Thanks so much for taking some time to be with us. Yesterday was Memorial Day. I know you served in Vietnam. First of all, I'd like to thank you very much for your service. I hope you had a nice weekend.
Thank you, Rob. I did, and we had good weather here on Long Island where I live.
Well, that's after the winter you guys have had. It's nice to finally get out and enjoy some sunshine, I'm sure. Radiant Angel is an interesting book. It's a John Corey novel, and it basically recreates a Cold War scenario. So, you know, in the novel, it seems like Corey realizes something the U.S. government is not quite onto, and that's that the Russians could be up to something. Tell us a little bit about the book and why you chose to recreate something that, you know, may have taken place in the early 1960s when JFK was president and the Cuban Missile Crisis and that sort of thing.
Yeah, good question. I mean, one of my earlier books was Charm School, and there were some earlier books that were Cold War thrillers, which was an easy subject to write about in the 70s and 80s. And my last book, when the Cold War ended, was Charm School. And now, I mean, ironically, I think we're back to the Cold War, and this is what my character, John Corey, concludes. He's ex-NYPD homicide detective, now working for the Anti-Terrorist Task Force. His last 6 books had to do with Islamic terrorism, but now he's been reassigned to watch people at the Russian UN mission in Manhattan. And he's on to a colonel, SVR colonel. In the old days, it would be KGB colonel,
right,
who's up to something. And John knows he's up to something, but nobody really thinks this guy's up to anything because he's supposed to be a diplomat, and they know he's an intelligence officer, but they don't believe what John is starting to believe, that there was something big going on here. And I guess that's the theme of the book, that Russia is resurgent and the Cold War may be back, and we're not paying attention to it.
Yeah, it kind of parallels real life, as you said. The Cold War, of course, ending in the late 1980s during Ronald Reagan's time when the Berlin Wall came down, and now it seems like ties between the U.S. and Russia at the very best are strained. We're coming into an election cycle in 2016. Where do you hope things go as we push into 2016 and elect a new president that's going to have to deal with Vladimir Putin?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're not dealing with Vladimir Putin, and you know, I think there's we created a power vacuum here, and Putin moved right into it. You know, the man is ex-KGB, and he's a tough guy, and he's got the people behind him. I mean, the Russian people are not really anti-American. I've been to Russia twice. They like Americans, but they've got a guy there who's trying to give them their pride back. You know, the Soviet Empire was terrifying for the rest of the world, and then when the Russians went through a bad period. So, you know, he's doing what Adolf Hitler did in the 1930s. He's giving his people their pride back. He's making them feel strong and confident again. And we're not, the theme of my book, and I guess the theme of a lot of some politicians we're not paying attention to these people. Islamic terrorism is bad, but they are not a nation state like Russia, that possesses thermonuclear weapons. And these guys can be dangerous again.
Nelson, it's an interesting book. I'm about halfway through it right now. I look forward to finishing it. The book is Radiant Angel. That is Nelson DeMille joining us live from New York City this morning. I also wanted to say The General's Daughter, 1999 movie featuring John Travolta, based on a book you wrote. That's one of my favorite movies as well, Nelson. Thanks so much for your time this morning.
Thanks, Rob.